No good. Hello, my puffy, godlike friends. Arlo here, and today we're reviewing Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Kirby and I have had something of a rocky relationship. I played a bit of Dreamland 1 and 2 as a kid on my friend's Game Boy, and Kirby was the first Smash character I ever connected with, so I've always liked him on some level. I was interested in really trying out some of his games, but then Star Allies sort of soured my view of him for a time. I was extremely critical of the game, which of course didn't sit well with some of his fans, and Kirby as a whole just became something of an awkward topic. But all that changed when I saw the trailer for Forgotten Land. Suddenly my Kirby admiration began to stir once more. I thought, could this be the Kirby game I've been waiting for? The one that really shows me what the little guy is capable of? Well, that's what we're here to find out. Is Kirby and the Forgotten Land a successful first foray into 3D, or is this an apocalyptic failure? He travels to a weird other dimension he's never been to, and the third dimension is also a dimension why did I only just get that? That's awesome. If you were forced to boil down Kirby and the Forgotten Land into one single hook to sell the game on, it's that this is Kirby, but in true 3D for the first time. So let's talk about that first. It is unsurprising to me that Kirby feels right at home in 3D, because these games have always been slightly slower paced than many other platformers. Kirby's puffy, floaty nature means that precision platforming, it isn't as much of a thing as it could be. So there isn't really a learning curve. I picked up the controller and it instantly felt right to move Kirby around these 3D spaces. When it comes to combat, we definitely lose a lot of nuance in terms of controls. 2D games allow you to use more directional inputs for your moves, thus increasing your potential arsenal. Star Allies had a ton of abilities and characters with quite a lot of moves each. But here in 3D, the movesets are much, much simpler. I could easily see this coming as a disappointment to anyone who loves mastering a lot of different movesets, but it works perfectly well for me. With so many different abilities, I kinda like that I don't have to struggle with learning moves. More importantly though, the amount of fun new stuff the third dimension opens up is more than worth the trade-off in my book. Launching attacks, zipping around, throwing projectiles, sliding frozen enemies, it's all just so much more fun in 3D. I know, I am letting my 3D bias show. I like plenty of 2D games, but more often than not, I just find 3D movement more fun, and 3D environments are just more interesting to me. So even without getting into everything else, Kirby and the Forgotten Land is a winner already. The gameplay is instantly and endlessly enjoyable. It's familiar, but still fresh and exciting. It bridges that 2D, 3D gap effortlessly, and because of its pre-existing foundation, it also feels very polished, despite being something new for Kirby. If you didn't know a thing about Kirby and you only played this game, you wouldn't guess that this has been a primarily 2D series. Thanks to Kirby's signature copy ability, his games have always featured a lot of gameplay variety, and you know me, I loves me some gameplay variety. Forgotten Land is of course no exception, and this time much of that variety comes from the new Mouthful mode. You see, when Kirby is sucked into the portal at the beginning of the game, he gets, squished around a little bit, and because of that, he can now stretch grotesquely over large objects and somehow control them with his insides. It's not really explained, and you know what? I'm okay with that. It's a terrific new mechanic though. Obviously, it's very reminiscent of Mario's capture ability in Odyssey. Kirby can glom onto cars, traffic cones, stairs, lots of otherwise mundane stuff, and make good use of it. These Mouthful sections are usually fairly short. You're not expected to waddle through an entire level as a hoop, but they're loads of fun, and they offer little bursts of alternative gameplay to keep things interesting. Mouthful mode is so fun that it was kinda disappointing when I stopped seeing new objects to use. There really are a fair amount of them though, I'm probably just being greedy. Then, of course, we also have Kirby's traditional copy abilities, and they're fantastic. They all do wildly different things, and it feels great to try something new and be like, oh man, that's so OP. And you just can't wait to get back out on the field and wreak some havoc. Making the whole concept oh so much better though. This time you can find blueprints and actually upgrade your abilities. These upgrades are often just strictly better, which is already awesome, but sometimes they change how an ability works in such a way that after a while, I started gravitating toward upgraded abilities I didn't initially like. I've definitely got my favorites, but I found myself playing around with all sorts of different abilities, and really enjoying the process of swapping between them within levels. As with mouthful mode objects, there was a little part of me that was disappointed when I realized I'd seen all of them. But again, there really are a good number, and if anything, I understand that you don't want to design too many abilities when you're also designing multiple versions of each one. Might get a little too complicated. So let's talk levels. When the game was first revealed, I did hope that it would have a more open structure, but this very much is a linear platformer. You got a world map, and each level has a beginning and an end. In fact, there's probably less in the way of path variety here than in Star Allies. Alternate exits leading to branching paths and secret levels? That's not really a thing. However, that doesn't seem to matter one bit. The level design on display is excellent. Between all the mouthful objects and copy abilities, there were just so many fun mechanics for the designers to plan around. These mechanics are deftly woven into each world's themes, and it all feels very natural. It eschews the abstractness you often see in platformers, and instead creates the kind of visual, thematic, and mechanical cohesion that I'm always praising games like Donkey Kong Country Returns and Tropical Freeze for. Abstract is fine in its own way, but man, when they can get everything working together perfectly, it makes for a magical experience. I will admit that the game does start out a little slow. At first, there's a lot of that tasty cohesion, and the use of mechanics is very clever, but it's still fairly simple and easy to breeze through. Fortunately, this is one of those games that just gets better and better the further you get. The fun ideas start coming faster and faster, and the last few worlds feature the most impeccable design of the bunch. It's funny because here I am praising how grounded the design is, but we actually get the best of both worlds thanks to Treasure Road stages. These are your standard floating blocks out in Nowheresville fare, and each one focuses on a single mechanic, so this is where the designers were able to give it all they had. Here you'll find some really fantastic levels with fun uses for abilities I hadn't considered, and if you're trying to hit the goal time, they can be really fast and frantic. Now, we can't forget that beyond levels, we've also got boss battles. I am particularly pleased by the bosses in this game. As with the levels, they start off kinda simple, but ramp up as the game goes on and as you fight harder and harder versions of each boss. The designs are fun and the cinematics add some great flair, but I would say Kirby's dodge move is what really seals the deal. Think Smash Bros. You hold the block button and tilt the stick to dodge in that direction. Pull it off and the game slows down, allowing you to bullet time your way out of the danger zone. This is great for a number of reasons. First, it just looks cool. It adds even more flair to these battles and makes you feel super awesome. But it also just makes a ton of sense for a Kirby game. These battles aren't really about figuring out the bosses or interacting with a bunch of different mechanics. It's very traditional. They throw out attacks, you dodge them while dealing as much damage as you can as fast as you can. This means that learning a boss's moves and knowing when to press the attack is key. And coming from a Kirby game, this style of fight was a nice surprise. Dodging and punishing attacks is incredibly satisfying, especially when fighting the game's tougher bosses. Speaking of tough bosses, let's talk a little about difficulty. This was something I was pretty worried about when going into the game. I can enjoy an easy game, but it's got to do a lot of work to keep me engaged, and in the end, I'm still probably going to wish I was challenged more. I just think things are so much more fun when they take effort. The obscenely low difficulty was one of my least favorite things about Star Allies. AI partners did nearly all the fighting for me, so I was rarely, if ever, encouraged to actually try. Not much was required of me beyond maybe 1 or 2 boss fights that took a couple tries. While I am happy to say that Forgotten Land offers a much better experience in this regard. First off, there's an actual difficulty setting. Thank you. Thank you! Please, other Nintendo games, take note! Now, the harder option doesn't really make things too hard. If I'm honest, I do wish they'd cranked up that dial a good deal higher. I mean, if you're gonna make a hard mode, you might as well make it hard. But it does the job well enough. Even if I still don't die a lot, I do feel like I have to try. I've got to put forth the effort. Plenty of challenges had me trying multiple times, and some of the later bosses in particular can be downright tough the first time through. 1 or 2 of them actually made me go, hey, this is challenging. And it was great! When you die, you even lose some star coins, and it's nice having at least some little penalty to more actively discourage dying. Plus, it's way better than the antiquated life system. Basically, the game is still on the easier side overall, but it offers just enough challenge to keep things interesting. And even more, it does that hard work I mentioned so that things are interesting even when they are very easy. And that brings us to WaddleDTown. Yes, this may be a mostly linear platformer, but having a little hub town that you can return to does so much to ground the adventure and make the world feel a little more consistent. It's also just a great little palate cleanser between levels. Before we talk about anything practical though, can I just say, sweet, merciful mozzarella sticks, Batman! This game is painfully adorable! The Waddle Dees are too much. They sit around reading and relaxing and chatting with each other. There's a little band that plays songs from the game. You could do little emotes at them and they have different reactions based on which one you use. If you hit them, they keel over dramatically, then they pop up like, JK, I'm fine. They're just so cute. And they make the town that much more fun to visit. So you fill up your town with Waddle Dees throughout the course of the game. You save Waddle Dees that are hidden in levels, but you also save more by meeting little goals within the levels, which is a ton of fun. It really rewards exploration and offers a little extra replayability. As your town fills, you unlock new buildings and minigames and such, and I loved trying out each new attraction as I earned them. All these side activities earn you star coins and rare stones, which can be used at the weapon shop to upgrade your abilities like I talked about earlier. And while we're back on the topic, seriously, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the upgrade system. I'm a total sucker for currencies and upgrade systems in the first place because I have a monkey brain and I like to collect the things and have them make my other things cooler. I guess I just like tangible rewards. But even beyond that, it adds depth and interest to a game that doesn't have a tremendous amount of content. We'll talk about length later. It's just something fun to do, and I feel that it fits the 3D format very well. It's somewhere to keep returning to whenever you visit WaddleDTown. The simple act of running into the shop, upgrading some stuff, watching the adorable little animation, testing your new moves out on the dummy, it's just a pleasant experience, and it helps me feel like I'm getting stronger and working towards something, rather than, just trying to get to the end of the game. You earn more star coins when you play on hard mode, but even then, it takes a lot of work to collect the coins and stones you need to upgrade everything. And I must say, I really appreciate the scarcity. In the same way that I feel a game needs to be challenging or interesting enough to be worth playing, upgrade systems aren't exactly worth much if your currency is so plentiful that there's absolutely no resource economy. And this scarcity is actually very smart, because one great way to earn extra coins and stones is by fighting in the Colosseum. See, I wasn't interested in the boss rush mode in Star Allies. The fighting itself just wasn't fun enough to me, and there wasn't any real reward at stake. Here though, the boss battles are extremely fun. Getting faster and faster times because you're upgrading your abilities is extremely satisfying, and I extremely want me some star coins and rare stones. Instead of just being an extra mode for the hardcore fans to mess around with, boss rush is now an important part of the experience, and it's another thing that makes an otherwise short game feel much more substantial. Speaking of, another reason to collect coins is these little figurines. You find them in levels and purchase them from gotcha machines in WaddleDTown. There are a ton of them, and it's another fun thing to plug away at if you're in the mood. You can even display your favorites in your house, and when you look at them, Kirby's there looking at them too. Ah! It's too cute. Look at his little arms, look at his little face. He's just so pleased. Okay, I've kind of been dancing around the topic of length for a while now, so let's talk about it. Kirby in the Forgotten Land isn't as egregiously short as Star Allies, but it's still kinda short. The Colosseum and weapon upgrading and all that does help fill things out tremendously, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't wish it was longer, especially for a $60 game. It feels like there are very few worlds, and like I said earlier, apart from Treasure Road stages, which are generally very quick to complete, there aren't any secret levels to unlock as you go. Most worlds are a scant 4 levels plus a boss encounter. The game didn't need to be super long or anything, but it really feels like it needed at least one more world. There is bonus content after you roll the credits, and it's definitely appreciated, especially seeing as it's some of the best content in the game. But even with those, quote, bonus levels, it could have used more. The last world of the main story feels exactly like the fake-out last world from a Mario game. Here's the lava world, this must be the last one. Just kidding, the actual last world is Bowser's theme park world, whoa! It's like that, but it really does end on the lava world with no theme park. It ends very abruptly, and it's like reaching the top of the stairs and trying to take one more step that isn't there. And as far as exploring ideas goes, the game does do a lot of interesting things with its mechanics, like I said. But it goes exactly as far as I would hope, pretty much right up to that I need at least this much line, then stops. It never takes things further than I would have expected. And it's disappointing because of how inventive some of these ideas are. There are some Treasure Road stages that introduce whole new ideas that easily could have returned multiple times, but nope. Here's an awesome new idea, blast through the stage to get a good time, and you're done. Idea complete. Go do something else. It's really funny to say this, but in all honesty, I think this game could have used a little more padding. Generally, you don't want a game artificially padded out for length, but the ideas here are so good that it's just sad you don't get to spend more time with them. They're just fun, so in the same way that an idea or mechanic can return multiple times throughout a stage with a new twist each time, I would love to see multiple iterations of basically everything. Even just more Treasure Road stages would have helped a lot. They might not have increased the runtime, but they might have made me feel a little more satisfied with how much I got to play with such cool mechanics. Yes, the overall amount of content is a little disappointing, but here's the silver lining. And actually, the most important thing I wanted to talk about in this review. The biggest reason I believe the game is shorter than I would like it to be also happens to be the game's biggest strength. There aren't a ton of levels because the ones we do have clearly been crafted with incredible care. The post-apocalypse setting is a dream come true. Kirby and his cutesy friends and enemies set against these epic, ruinous cityscapes meshes with me at a very deep level. I love colorful characters, but I really love it when they find themselves in situations that are just a little bit more, you know? I love a scenario that's imaginative, evocative, mysterious. Why does this place exist? Why is Kirby here? Where did all the people go? It's just so weird and engaging. It makes the entire experience so memorable. And that's largely because this is one theme that's explored to a very satisfying degree. We get to see so many facets of a city, so many abandoned locations, each presenting such cool sights and mechanics. And this is one of those games that never stops showing you amazing sights. Sure, I was initially disappointed that this is a game with linear levels and a fixed camera, but it uses those limitations to its advantage. Since the game has complete control over the camera, it thus has complete control over what you see. This means setting up incredible views, utilizing interesting cinematography, crafting everything to look as great as possible from your perspective, whether it's a decrepit mall or rusty pipeworks or eerie skyscrapers. The entire world has been packed with such exceptional detail, and it makes even the simplest of levels so much fun to traverse. This game is so beautiful and so chock full of incredible stuff to see that, to me, on top of being a video game, it feels like an art piece. Video games are art, so technically that already does make it an art piece. But some games take things further, you know? And Kirby and the Forgotten Land is one of those games. And it's funny because it feels like they spent a lot of money on this game, with all the incredible visual elements, all the detail, all the sprawling cityscapes. It's almost surprising they didn't want to make a more substantial game out of it. Something longer, maybe where you could freely explore the city. And yet, the limited scope is somehow more impressive. They took a presumably decently big budget and crafted this gorgeous world and crammed everything into a relatively short little Kirby adventure. They condensed it down into this jam-packed, constantly beautiful and entertaining experience. And who else does that? How often do we get games like that? That's why this feels like an art piece to me. It's almost a statement. A great big challenge to the rest of the industry. You all spend a bunch of time crafting big open worlds for people to spend hundreds of hours in? Well, we spent a bunch of time crafting one short adventure. What are you gonna do about it? Obviously, you can't really compare this game to a big AAA open world game, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. It's just so much to cram into a Kirby game, and the end result feels like a very special, very artistic experience. It's the kind of game you can boot up and play around with in the same way you would gaze at a beautiful painting or a sculpture. It's a piece of art you can just sit and appreciate. And somehow that feels so fitting for Kirby. He's so emotionally impervious to even the darkest horrors. So dropping into a post-apocalypse city, cruising through in his usual style, then just being like, yay, we did it, when's lunch? It makes total sense. And actually, the dichotomy between serious and cutesy is one of the things I love about Forgotten Land. The environment is eerie and mysterious, but the tone of the game is still so happy. These whimsical levels are built on top of the crumbling decay of a once bustling metropolis. In usual Kirby fashion, the story goes some really interesting places, and it leads to a positively fantastic finale, which is all really just a standard workday for Kirby, isn't it? And you know what? I can honestly say that this is the game that made me love the little guy. I've always thought he was pretty cool, but this has brought me to a whole new level of appreciation. Right at the start of the game, after he freakishly stretches himself over a car, we hear a fun pop song play on the radio as he drives down the road, holding out his arms to better feel the breeze, clearly enjoying himself. This was a big moment for me. It doesn't matter how weird the situation is, how far away he is from home, or indeed how dark the story gets. He's still a happy little pink puffball. He's a symbol of fun and color and positivity. I think I get Kirby now. I get him. And I love him. Suddenly, I find myself wanting to go back and play all the old Kirby games, and that's not a feeling I've ever had before. But here we are. I suppose that is the power of Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Sure, it could have been longer. Some of its ideas could have been explored a little more. And yeah, I really do hope that someday we get a more open Kirby adventure. But this is a 3D Kirby game that takes place in an overgrown post-apocalypse city, which just so happens to be one of my very favorite aesthetics. Like, seriously, old buildings with grass and vines and stuff, I'm crazy about it. This was already a recipe for success, but the Kirby team also pulled everything off so well. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is a beautiful game that I will most certainly be returning to many times. Sometimes, maybe, just to gaze. I love Kirby now. This is so weird. I think that makes me a fan? Or something? I don't know. I need to think on this. But hey, thank you for watching my review. Please do me the honor of letting me know what you think about the game down in the comments. And in the meantime... Yeah, I got some amiibo to buy.